Welcome back to Navigation and Discovery with Cameron Singh. On today's podcast, we have special guest Richa Awasthi. Richa was the former mayor of Foster City in Northern California, and she also served on the city council for several years. And Richa's background is actually in the financial services industry. And so she started in that industry after immigrating from India, and she wanted to be a part of creating change, and which was the reason why initially she entered into politics, serving on the city council in Foster City. And she made history being the first minority woman to be mayor of Foster City in over 50 years, and also as an Indian American. And so you're going to hear some great insights from Richa, some of her challenges in city council, a little bit about her why. And so really hope you enjoy this podcast. Thank you. Well, Richa, thank you for being on the podcast. Happy to talk to you about your journey and your experience.
Thank you, Cameron. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. So let's start with your, you have a very awesome and dynamic background, both in city politics and in business. So I'd like to take a step back a little bit and talk about, your experience and what led up to your entrance into city politics. So if you can give us a little bit of background of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been living in the US in the Bay Area in Foster City for 2 decades. And, I'm an immigrant from India. And like every immigrant, when you come to this country, you're busy settling down, just building your foundation and a grounding. So I had the background of being in the corporate world, financial services industry. So I was busy working my way up through entry-level jobs. And right now I serve as Senior Vice President of Zelle Payments at US Bank. And, having a family, I have two kids, twins, who are now 16. But as you can imagine, being a young family, trying to settle in a new country, trying to have a family, raising kids. The story is very common to so many of us, so many immigrants, being in a new country and trying to settle down. I like to think, and I've demonstrated that also, where I'm different and unique in that I'm very action oriented, and since I was a little kid, whenever I'm in a situation, if I see an opportunity for improving it, I just don't complain and don't sit tight. I like to take action. So that led to getting involved in my kids' school to begin with. So when my kids were in public schools, elementary school in Foster City, I got involved in site council, and helped the school with, their, especially the principal, preparing an education plan, and chaired site council for 2 years in a row. And then I volunteered in many different capacities with my kids' school. And then I saw a position with the city. It was a committee in Innovation Technology Advisory Committee. So I had taken on a new job, and the role that was published, I just saw a banner driving by, and I was like, this is very similar to what I do during my day job, and it will be a good opportunity to kind of give back to the city. I'd lived in the city for like 15, 16 years, and so then I applied for that, went to the city council, interviewed, and got selected. And then I chaired that committee for a couple of years, I think. And then a city council position opened, and several people asked me to consider running. And it was a difficult decision at the time, because of the reasons I mentioned, right? Being an immigrant, trying to settle down, there was so much already on my plate. And the easy answer at the time was to like, no, maybe later, maybe, 5 years when my kids are, in college or something like that. But my husband encouraged me, and he was very supportive, and he was like, if people see that your skills can help the city, we love the city so much, then I will support you. Why don't you step up? And I did, but I had no idea what I signed up for. I thought that it would be an extension of the volunteer roles that I'd been doing, right? It's a small city, 35,000 people, less than 35,000 people. And, I would just use my skills and give back and, contribute to policy decision making. So it was a learning curve. So I had to learn about, what city is all about, what city politics is, what are the decisions I'll have to make, how does a city run, what are the different departments. So I did my homework. And so that was one part, like what the job entailed. And then the other part was a campaign. So I'm not a trained politician, had never run a campaign like that. It was something that, like my drive, like I'm action oriented. And I was like, I signed up for it. And then I'm very competitive also. So when I signed up for it, I was like, I got to win. So, I worked very hard, faced challenges because of the political environment of the city at the time and those who were supporting me, etc. But I won the election in 2018, and then got into the politics of things. So you're almost thrown in a situation where you kind of have no option but to figure things out. So kind of learning on the job and at the same time performing. It's a position of extreme responsibility because the decisions you make as a policymaker, there are 5 council members, but there's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders because the decisions could impact people's lives, short term and long term. So I worked very hard, did my homework on every single aspect involved, and tried to do justice to the role. The final year as the mayor, it got even more busy and a lot of juggling and more responsibility. But I was very proud of the work that I did. The year-end state of the city video that I created kind of brought everything together. Some of the things, some of the turmoil that existed in the city, I tried to bring in the professional kind of order and culture of, basing decisions on data and facts, try to inculcate meritocracy, if you will, among the city staff, with a balanced approach. Obviously, there are many factors involved. So that in a nutshell.
Awesome. Sounds like an interesting journey. I wanted to touch on how the campaign was for city council. Of course, that was not an easy journey, and you mentioned you didn't realize what you signed up for until you had to go through that entire process. What were some of the challenges that you had during the campaign, or maybe some unexpected things that came up?
Yeah. So one of the things, I've learned now, looking back is, there are always so many more supporters than, those who would not support you. And I think the toughest part is like people would not take the time to really get to know you, to meet with you, get to know you in the world that we are in. Internet and social media, propaganda and misinformation, rumors, that has the potential to paint a picture of you that is not you. So the responsibility of residents or at the national level of us as citizens, as voters, is to really do your homework and get to know the people. And people are busy, and there's a tendency to be a little bit lazy. There's a tendency to kind of go with the flow, and just make assumptions, and develop a certain perception about individuals, right? So that is a big challenge. So I knocked on doors quite a lot in both my campaigns, and I observed that when I talk with people one-on-one, when they get to know me, they they you know they like me, and that worked really, really well for me, because when they had the opportunity to see my passion, to see the credentials that I bring to the role, to see that I would really do a great job, I think that um, that confirms or counters some of the things that they may have been hearing. So I think doing the homework, understanding, in the context of a political campaign, right? Understanding the positions, and not trusting rumors that people may be hearing. And Foster City is a small city, so there's a lot of whisper campaign that goes on, and it is difficult to generalize things. But if I look in terms of demographics, right? So if I look in terms of age groups, and look in terms of the ethnicities, etc. So it is difficult to generalize it, because there may be white or older people, for example, who love my approach, and are willing to, like true America, willing to give an immigrant, a brown woman, a chance. There are several of those. But then there are also those who are older and white and kind of scared of, here's this immigrant brown woman, and what is she gonna do? What is she gonna take away from me? And I love this place, whatever, right? They're coming, these new people, these immigrants, they're coming in from different countries and kind of taking over. So there's that mentality too. But again, I would say that there are quite a lot, and that's the reason why we love this country. We are successful in this country, because not everyone is like that. America that I know of is really very supportive. It's really the land of opportunity. Even the demographics that I'm talking about, older or whites, I've got tremendous support from them as well. But there is definitely a sliver of those who are kind of like scared, I think, or apprehensive, or not sure on, not trusting, I guess, despite anything and everything you can prove to them. Because I did such an awesome job as the mayor, and some people don't like this. They call it like arrogance or whatever, but it's the conviction that I have, and I have gotten that feedback from so many, and I had proven myself on every aspect. Listening to all point of view. It's not just my views or what I feel like. I followed a very methodical process in running, the city as the mayor, and very logical decision-making process. So I demonstrated what I'm capable of. I built so many regional relationships with the regional leaders, and established Foster City's position in the region that didn't exist before, I don't think. And I heard that from so many, throughout the Bay Area. And I demonstrated it, but still it wasn't enough for some people, because I can't change the color of my skin. I can't change who I am. It wasn't enough. And that's the thing that kind of bothered me a little bit. But then when I put things in perspective, like I started to, I started with when we started talking, is that there's so much more support than compared to, those haters, if you will.
Yeah.
So, but that part is something that needs work on, because your credentials, your hard work, you demonstrate everything, you check all the boxes, you do a good job. At times it doesn't matter because you can change the color of your skin, and that's a fact. And I'm not talking about, and I'm not trying to use a race card or anything, but it's a fact. It's never enough. It's never going to be enough, because you cannot change the color of your skin for some people, not for everyone.
Mm-hmm. And I know it sort of, so you won city council running for politics for the first time. And I'm sure those first couple of weeks after, because this is something that I struggle with too. And I just started a new leadership role in the aviation industry on Monday. And there's this inner dialogue that always comes to play in my mind, is like, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be here. And I'm sure you had that too, like, what am I doing here? I shouldn't be here. How did you manage that, being in starting off in council? And then I like to touch a little bit on your transition to mayor and how that was.
Sure. Yeah, I think when things were difficult, I'd not lie, there were times where I'm like, I'm out of here. I mean, this is not worth it. I thought it's a volunteer job, and I want to give back to the city. I want to use my credentials, my time. It's a sacrifice for my family, and if it's gonna be like this, I don't want to do this. I have a professional career. I have so many opportunities. I'm doing this just to give back, because it is fulfilling to give back. It is really very inspiring to be able to inspire others and to be able to help improve people's lives. And that was the only reason I was. And I love the city. I wanted to live in the city for as long as I can. So that was the reason. But when I had those moments, I'd like to say my mentors and people who supported me kind of kept me from doing that, from quitting. And there weren't that many moments, one or two times when it got really tough. They're like, we need people like you in politics, and why would you consider even leaving? And you need to survive in this, like, be able to take the blows and come out successfully. So I attribute it to my mentors. So I was fortunate to have some really good mentors, mayors and city council members from neighboring cities, who kind of like, this, you can't quit. And then, as I said, I am competitive by nature. When I sign up for something, I want to really do well in it, and I want to give it my 100%. And yeah, that kept me going.
Yeah, you touched on something good that I take to heart, is having mentors surround you and having the right mentors that continue to encourage you, because even if it's 4 or 5 haters, those 4 or 5 haters sound like 100, and it can really bring you down. But having people around you that continue to encourage you in several different ways really makes a difference. So you served on council and then transitioned to mayor. Could you take us inside that process and how that journey was, of that transition from council member to mayor?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am, I was the first immigrant woman of color mayor of Foster City in Foster City's 50-year history. Um, the the position of mayor is supposed to be rotational, right? So every council member kind of gets the turn to be the mayor, but that had been a little political in Foster City. So I wasn't 100% sure that politics would not play a role again, and that I may or may not get the chance to be the mayor. But I remained focused on the job. I did my due diligence, did my job really well. Try to build relationships with uh, people with like different views, kind of reaching across the aisle, if you will. And yeah, I think by that time, things got a little like smoother, with all the work that I put in, and some of the newer members who got elected also so kind of help play a role in that. And so I was unanimously selected, 5-0 vote up to be the mayor. And the transition is, in a lot of ways, the role of mayor is ceremonial, in that, they represent the council, they represent the city in events, in, ribbon cuttings, etc. But I try to take it, above and beyond that, as the leader, as someone who can steer the direction the city would go, especially some of the longer term projects or longer term strategic ideas I try to focus on. Like, for example, one of the things I really was passionate about and I made strides on is public-private partnerships. So the role of publicly traded companies in giving back to the city. So how you can establish a strategic alliance with them, having more relationships regionally, making the progress on existing projects, how to communicate, engage with the residents better. So several of those aspects that I kind of used my background, which was very unique, and still I don't think there is anyone from the corporate world in the council, and that brings a lot of corporate rigor, discipline, methodical approach, professional demeanor, and I brought all those things, and try to move the needle on several of the projects.
And then how did you because being at a mayor of any city, small or large, you still are at a pedestal where people are watching, people are making comments, people are opposing viewpoints, opposing decision making, and that's just a norm of city politics. How did you handle being on that platform and pedestal? How did you handle just the all of the stuff that comes behind the attention of basically being mayor?
Yeah, it's said that if you are too popular as a politician, then you're probably not doing your job, because anything you do, there is a chance that half of the people will like it, half of the people will hate it. So by this time now, I developed, the strength and, sort of the thick skin and the focus, to continue to push things forward that I thought were right. And there are curveballs. They're always curveballs. And an interesting time that we are in, where we are so divided as a nation, that trickles down to local level too. So to juggle that, to balance that, required a lot of tact. And unfortunately, not a lot of people watch council meetings. But those who watched me in action, after every difficult topic that we dealt with and how I navigated it, I received good feedback. One of the topics, for example, involved, like an application from a developer to some concerns from the labor unions, right? And there was divisiveness in the council on that. So to be able to navigate that and achieve an outcome that was favorable for all the parties and kind of setting an example, that Foster City Council did, that was really monumental. So I think the short answer to your question is, that no longer, I mean, it does bother me. We're all human beings. Negative comments, even if there are 5 of them, but I'm able to put things in perspective better. So I'm able to handle it. So, and sometimes it's a good sign too, that you must be doing something right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And then what would you say, I know those that are listening to this podcast, very fascinated by your story and journey. But often I think people struggle with, and I know I struggled this with before, is, I'll never become that. I'll never achieve that role because of my circumstances. What type of encouragement would you provide? Because I see this so often, is that inner dialogue that people don't really change, is where
Right.
they define themselves, who they are, based on where they came from.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a constant battle. And over the years I've learned that um, it is so much mental um, strength. So it is dependent on so much having that mental strength to stop that um, that voice in you that could pose hurdles. All right. um, and I'm hesitating a little bit because not every situation, it's very easy to preach, right? It's very easy to preach, and not every individual and every situation um, can lead to things of that nature. But one thing I can say, that by remaining focused and just working on your inner voice, and just stopping the negative thoughts, it's an exercise. It's like you have to constantly try for it to stop, can lead to better outcomes than otherwise would. So than otherwise you would be able to achieve. So I think it's like, whenever your mind, for example, when you're saying like, oh, this is, you're thinking, so I'm kind of stuck here. No matter what I do, I will not be able to achieve that. When that thought starts to come in your mind, just stop that and think about what you can do that is positive, that is constructive. That thought will come again. You have to constantly stop that. And when you do that multiple times, it sort of becomes your nature, your habit. And I don't want to sound like a psychiatrist here, but that truly works, right? You stop that voice that is negative, and it won't stop in the first attempt. Like, you constantly try that, and then it works. But then there would be moment again where there are curveballs, and you can feel disappointed or depressed or hopeless. But no one else from of course, I'm a proponent of taking health, and we're talking so much about mental health these days, and therapy sessions and all definitely can help. But I think it's um, believing that you have to bring in that inner strength to be able to deliver is so important. And this is what I tell my kids too. Nothing that is of value is easy. So so unless and until you dedicate yourself 100% to a goal, whatever the goal is, it is difficult to it is impossible to achieve that. The world is getting difficult by the day. So it's just working on your feelings and becoming mentally strong. um and it's practice, and anyone can do that. So that's what I'll tell people. It's not like something you're born with. It's something that you can develop. It is possible to develop, and it leads to better outcomes than you would enjoy or experience otherwise. So what's the wrong, what's the downside of it? So regardless of where you are, if you try to just focus, start somewhere, and then one thing leads to another. I know it's a long-winded answer, but I wanted it to be a little bit more practical.
Yeah, that's really good. And you've been a very successful person in the corporate world with various roles, and right now you're a vice. Is it what's your current role with US Bank?
I'm senior vice president of Zelle Payments.
Hmm. And then throughout your journey in the corporate world, I know it's not an easy journey. What kept you moving forward?
Yeah. I think I I try to maximize the opportunities I get. I try not to think about what is not in my control. And I, give my more than 100% to any situation I'm in. I never take for granted what I have. I think, I wish I could say, like in the corporate world, there is a secret sauce or a recipe, which is good and bad, right? If there was something hidden, I mean, if there is that I don't know about, but if there is something hidden, then anyone who's trying for a career can think, oh, I don't know this. If I just figure out what is that secret sauce, I may be able to be more successful. Let me tell you, there's no secret sauce. The only secret is hard work, focus, dedication. And like I said, if there is any that I don't know, but of course, connections and having mentors, that helps. But it's like individual efforts. It's your merit. I think that still works. In America, they
Yeah.
talk about American dream. So rather than thinking about finding alternate ways, remaining focused on doing things the right way and doing your homework and due diligence, that leads to the next thing. Not taking no for an answer. And of course, you can make mistakes, but learning from those mistakes and just keep moving forward. I think that is the secret. That I would say very strongly about having that focus, especially in today's world. There's so many distractions, and when you're thinking about a career path, if you allow yourself to get distracted, even in the field that you're looking at, then it would come in the way of achieving your goal. I think when you have decided on, so first plan and decide on a goal, then there should not be anything in between you and that goal. That extreme focus, like an athlete, is so important. I think it's more important than it had ever been before, because of the distractions that we have today.
Awesome. That's so true. And I'd like to close with this question because, you mentioned you have a family with two kids, and I think it's a battle that people are having today, is achieving what I would call as balance. And I think balance is different for everyone. There's not a sweet spot for achieving balance. So in everything that you've done so far in your career, in your life, how did you find that balance for yourself and your family?
Yeah, that is tricky, and depending on the situation, it gets more challenging. For example, when I was a mayor last year, it was extremely challenging, with my day job, being the mayor, and then I ran for re-election. So I would. There were months it was really challenging, and I had no balance. So I was very thankful for having a supportive husband, and my family supported me wholeheartedly in my efforts. So during those months, and there could be times where my I'm sacrificing my time with my family, not having dinners with them, etc. But generally speaking, I try to have the balance, and it's about prioritizing. So what is more important for you? And I always, any job I took, I always made sure that there was work-life balance, and that work-life balance is work-life balance in corporate world, which is not always the case, but yeah, I wanted to be able to have certain boundaries. So be very disciplined about boundaries. So if I want to pick my kids up, no matter what, I will plan a way around it. Or I want to spend time with them, I'll find a way around it. There are moments that, I would lose the balance, but for the most part, I try to set boundaries, um, define my to the extent I could define my schedule. Um, and still that is work in progress, to use phone less, for example. Some of the common things, I think you need to be really, really, I mean, after becoming a mom, I realized like you have to become really efficient and
Mhm.
use every single minute of the day wisely. So
Oh,
yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, it's been really nice to hear from your journey and your experience of not only your rise in the corporate world, but also seeing you thrive in city politics. So thank you so much for really being not an inspiration to me, but those that are listening, because it just shows that, if you put your mind to it, like you said, you put your mind to something, is continue to pursue it and go through all the different obstacles that come your way. It seems like you've done that pretty successfully.
Oh, thank you for having, and thank you for doing this for the audience. So great work, Cameron.
Yeah, thank you so much, Richa. Any other closing thoughts that you'd like to share?
I would just hope that people in our community, they step up more and try to get more engaged in especially in the local politics. I know it is difficult to do so as an immigrant when you're trying to settle down, working on your immigration statuses, etc. But it may not seem in the short term how important it is to get engaged, but over a period of time, that can lead to not getting engaged and involved, can lead to not getting represented when policies are made and designed for you. So figure out a way to get involved, even if it's for a couple of hours a week or something like that, or just reading and getting to know the policies, getting to know what even if you're not able to vote now, when you would be able to vote, getting an understanding of the policies. So
Well, thank you so much, Richa, for your time to actually do this podcast and share your experience. And thank you.
thanks a lot, Cameron.
Well, thank you for tuning in to Navigation and Discovery with Cameron Singh. I really hope the interview with Richa Awasthi really allowed you to go in her mindset and gather some of the challenges that she went through and some of the things that she was struggling with in her mindset to be a minority woman in politics in a local city council. And so I really hope that this interview helped add value to your life wherever you are at. If you want to connect with me, also, you can go to CameronSingh.com, and everything that you need to know is on there, all my social media links as well. And also, if you would like to purchase a copy of my latest book, Navigation and Discovery, you can go to CameronSingh.com, or the direct link is CameronSinghBook.com. And on my social media, you'll be able to see, if you want a little taste of it, the first 2 chapters of the book I'm giving out for free. You can find all that on my social media. And I really hope that you enjoyed this podcast. If you can do me a favor and give a good 5-star rating on whichever platform that you're listening to, and put in there some good comments with your Instagram handle, and I'll give you a shout out on the next podcast. Thank you so much, and really hope you enjoy this podcast. And subscribe now on whichever platform you're listening on, so you'll get the notice for the next one. Thank you, and take care.